Welcome, everyone. I'm Lesa McDermott, co-host of the Crow Camper podcast. And on today's episode, I am so excited to be interviewing the OG of overlanding, Patty Upton. Have you ever heard of the Darien Gap? It's one of the most inhospitable areas in Central America and almost impossible to cross by land. But Patty and her husband Lauren did it, and they hold the Guinness Book of World Records for being the first ones ever. So stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. Welcome, Girl Campers. I'm Lesa McDermott, your co-host of the Girl Camper podcast, and I am so excited to have today as my guest the legendary Patty Upton. But before we start to talk to Patty, a quick word from our sponsor.
What does it mean to camp like a girl?
It means charting your own course.
It means following your passions.
It means building your circle.
Sharing experiences.
And making memories that will last a lifetime.
It means conquering obstacles.
Finding your freedom.
And learning that so much more is out there for you to discover.
So what does it mean to camp like a girl? Well, that's for you to decide.
Because behind every great trip plan is a woman. Start your adventure today at GoRVing.com.
Patty, thank you so much for being on the Girl Camper podcast. I am just thrilled to have you on and to have met you this weekend at the Overland Expo. You are legendary. For those of you who do not know Patty, she is a world-renowned girl camper. And I am honestly just going to let Patty tell her story. Patty, tell us who you are and what you've accomplished and all of that.
When you heard enough, just tell me to shut up, because that's usually what has to happen. I've been traveling before I was born. My mom was pregnant with me on the West Coast in California. Dad was shipped overseas, and my grandmother came out and said, "No, you're not having the baby out here by yourself. You're coming back to New Jersey." So flew back to New Jersey, and that's where I was born. Otherwise, I was born in California. So I always say I was traveling before I was born. It's in my blood. Dad was military. We traveled every 3 to 4 years. It was one of those things that it was natural for me. I looked at people that have lived in the same place and went to the same school that their parents went to school at, and I'm thinking, people do that. But then they look at me and ask, how do you move every 3 years and not put down roots? You do put down roots. You do put down connections. But yeah, it's just a different lifestyle. And that was... You had your bags packed every 3 years. You Dad, where are we going? Where are we going? Well, I was fortunate. My last 2 years of high school, 2 years of college, in '69, Dad was transferred from Panama to the Canal Zone. And I got off the plane and I said, eternal summer. Finally, someplace I could live outdoors year round. Was again, something I enjoyed. I was a Girl Scout from the age of 7. I am still a Girl Scout. The knowledge that I gained in that program has served me well throughout my entire life. I still know my knots. I still keep the first aid kit handy when I get out my knife. But other than that, there's things, there's little tidbits that you learned as a Girl Scout. They stick with you. Putting up a tent, striking a tent, folding a tent, those never go right. The tents change, but the procedures still the same. And so we were in Panama in '69, went 2 years of high school there, went 2 years of college there, and then I got married there. So I went right from my family home into my husband's home, and he was actually our home was from his family's home. And he worked for the canal company, and I thought, I was fine. This was my life. House, we did four-wheeling. I enjoyed that. We went out camping quite a bit, enjoyed that. And then about 1975, late 74, actually, because a huge Ford F-250 pickup truck rolls into the canal zone. I mean, massive bumper, dual rear wheels, absolute painted bright red, massive. And this gentleman and my husband brought him home, waved him down and brought him, drives up to the driveway. And this guy is nuts. He thinks he's going to be able to drive from Panama south. That's the only reason he'd drive anything that big down here. And that's exactly what he thought he was going to do. He did not realize, as a lot of people still don't, that there's no road through the Darien Gap of Panama and Colombia. The Pan American Highway comes down to town of Ibiza. That's the end of it. They've got nothing but mountain jungles and swamps. Wow. And then pick up a road in Colombia. Well, we were very involved with Explorer Scouts at that time, and we had a lot of connections with military down there. So we put him in contact with Lauren, the driver of this 6'4" man that gets out of this truck. We put him in contact with these people. Say, okay, you can get medical supplies from him, probably get some maps from him. Here's some contact information there. And that was it. I mean, he was looking for volunteers to go with him, and I thought, I'd like to, but no, that's not that. So, I mean, we helped. Got him on the road, said goodbye, gone. Just several months later, he showed back up. A man had been shot and killed. One of the volunteers that the mission had been shot and killed. No known reason why. Nothing was stolen. Never really solved. Mystery. The whole bit. So that put an end to that trip. And Lawrence said he was going to take one American-made vehicle around the world, north-south course, all on land, except for the South Atlantic. So he started again in 1977, driving a CJ7. And he made it through the Darien Gap. I saw him briefly when he came in through the canal zone. It was like, I'm here. Can I leave some stuff? We'll get it when we get back. We'll take the doors off the Jeep and the soft top, and we want to just leave it with you. I'll send somebody back for him and get through. Sure enough, 6 weeks later or whatever it was, kid that was with him showed up, and I opened the doors, and on they went. Saw or heard from him again. Read in a newspaper article a few months later that he'd lost that vehicle over a cliff in Ecuador. The road turned, and he was high in the mountains. The windshield wipers, it was a Jeep, had the 2 wiper motors that are mounted up above, similar to this one. And the whole thing had been folded, the windshield had been folded down going through the Darien. And they had put a carpet or a rug or a blanket there to protect the hood where it was folded down. One of the motors probably got turned on, or both, I don't know what it was. And it burned out. They didn't realize it until they needed the windshield wipers and went to turn it on, and there were no wipers. So Lauren had reached out with his arm to clean the windshield on this foggy, dark mountain road and wasn't paying attention and went over a 300-foot embankment. Oh, wow. No interest anyone on board. They had picked up 2 hitchhikers. They were fine. The young Canadian was fine. Lauren was the only one that actually needed stitches. But he said
they were in the vehicle.
They were in the vehicle.
And
fortunately, the soft roof, it pulled off the roof right away. And Lauren says, I remember grabbing brush. And, that's basically, I think, what everybody did is they just grabbed something as it went by, because Lauren was the first one thrown out because he was the highest on the hill. John Blake was a little bit further down the hill. And then the couple hitchhikers were a couple of rolls further down the hill. So they were in the vehicle for a bit longer. And actually, the girl was unconscious when Lauren found her. And he was absolutely panicked out of his gourd at that point because he'd been with the first trip and having lost someone there. He felt very responsible. And now having lost this person that they just picked up on the side of the road several hours before, thinking, because she was totally unconscious, unresponsive, the whole bit. And he literally thought he had killed somebody. Wow. And that was a very, very hard day. Just knocked on car and just had a headache for a few concussion. That's fine. But Lawrence says all he could think about was, I got to do it again. He started out in 1979 with another Jeep. That one he lost in the Darien Gap to a corrupt park official. Created a national park there, and words were spoken and things were said that couldn't be taken back. Lauren ended up getting out with his life, and the Jeep was left cable tied around a tree on the river. Wow. And he had thoughts of going back and continuing, but life got in the way and it didn't happen. And he thought, for what it's worth, I'll just abandon that one and start over again after I've made money. He was a construction worker, worked heavy construction, freeway overpasses, bridges, and no matter when he went on one of these trips, he'd always, say, oh, look, I can only work X number of months. I can only work 2 years. Then I'm on the road again. And they were all very agreeable to this. He said every time he came back, his money was always better and his job was better. And so he always had a job waiting for him. And he lived on job sites. People want to know how you afford to do things like this. First of all, if you want it here, you can make it happen.
So true.
That's all it takes. It's just your priorities in life. He wanted to travel. Everything went into that. He lived in a little trailer on a job site. Took bucket baths until they could get running water to the camp, the trailer that he was in, that sort of thing. So yeah, you do what you have to do if your end goal is something else. So that's what he was doing. And I hadn't seen him since 1977 when they picked up the doors for the Jeep.
Okay.
So it had been, and this is now late 1979 when he went through and had to leave the Jeep. Didn't know anything about it till afterwards. And 83, early 83, I think. 83. My marriage was a little rocky at that point. I was beginning to maybe mature, grow up, realize that maybe this isn't really going to work the way I anticipated. And
I understand that. I've been married 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and married right out of, I met my husband while I was still in high school. I'm not saying that's bad, but I obviously, I was becoming a different person.
People change.
And I was seeing my husband as a different person. And it just was not a good relationship. And in 84, friend passing somebody on the street, I don't know what it was. He says, oh, remember that guy who was going through the Darien? He's back. So he's staying out at the Jeep Club. So I went down to the club, and sure enough, there's Lauren with this Jeep. It's a 1966 CJ5. It's christened the Sandship Discovery after one of Captain Cook's vessels. And he hadn't done it yet. I'd say, I didn't know. And he said, nope, this is our 4th attempt. And so I, again, helped him out best I could, came over, we went over maps, talked about stuff, arranged things. He said, well, I'm going to call my nephew in the States to see if he wants to come. And called his nephew, Lawrence, and Lawrence said, yeah, came down. And he was down there with him. They were the Jeep Club. There's what do you call those things? License plate on the front of the Jeep that's a decorative one that says the Isthmian Mudchuggers. And that's from the 4-wheel drive club in Panama. He stayed there with them. Well, at the club, they had a little clubhouse and they had a huge garage. So he was able to work on the vehicle and stay there. He cleaned the clubhouse for him before their meetings and gave him some money as a donation. And that's where he stayed for the couple of months before the trip started. Dry season is the only time you can really sanely want to take a vehicle through the Darien Gap, which is January, February, and March, give or take a few weeks either way. Everything else, it's rainy season. The rivers are going to be higher. You're going to have a lot more mud. You're going to have a lot more insects. It's just a more difficult time to do it. And so he was waiting for early January. Well, things happened. He had some problems with it. And I volunteered. I said, okay, I'll go as photographer. It's going to take 30 days to go through. No problem. Because in 79, he went through in 49 days. Okay. Or 77. 79 is the one that was left. 77, he did it in 49 days. He said, we'll make it probably 30 days. Okay. Well, we didn't.
How long is the Darien Gap?
Well, it depends on people's calculations. We were the last vehicle to actually go through, and we were the only vehicle to go through all on land. We clocked it at 125 miles from the end of the Pan American Highway at Yavisa to the village or town of Rio Sucio on the Atrado River in Colombia.
Okay.
And from there was what at that time was called a tractor trail out 38 miles to an established road. But because that was a tractor trail and we could drive it in, we drove that 38 miles in 10 hours. Mm. And that was the fastest we'd done in 2 years. So we considered Rio Sucio the end of the trip because it was an easy piece of ride. That 10 hours is still a long time to do 38 miles, but it was a whole lot faster than we had done in the Gap because the Gap total from the day we crossed the Chuquenaki River to the day we crossed the Atrato River was 741 days.
Wow.
2 rainy seasons. We didn't move. Lauren stayed with the Jeep the first rainy season at the village of Pucaroo, and I went back to my job in Panama. I worked for the Girl Scouts, and I would send down supplies via the missionary pilot, anything that was reading material. If it was 2 weeks old, 2 years old, whatever, anything that I knew was reading material, I'd send down to them. And canned goods, that sort of thing. And then in that beginning of the next dry season, I contacted my cousins that lived in the States. I said, I got an idea, this might be something you would like. I said, just for a few weeks, because I know, getting off work's difficult. I think I want to, mind if I bring my brother-in-law, Don? I said, no, not at all. So me and Don came down, and they were with us for about 3 weeks out there. And which was nice, because Lawrence, his nephew, had gone back to the States after that first season. He had to get back. So having the extra gringos is great, because always had to have a gringo out front when we were winching, watching the winch cable. Usually I had to have a gringo out with the crew, because we hired natives to work for us. We did not do this alone. If it wasn't for the natives, we'd still be going in circles out there. We hired natives to work for us. We hired a native to cook for us, because now we got anywhere between 4 and 14 men that were feeding. So the logistics on something like this are probably more difficult than winching a vehicle through the Darien Gap. I mean, yeah, you have clear trail, you have to find trail, you have to have people that can do all that, you have to feed all those people, you have to get them food, we have to have gas. So your logistics of all this and stockpiling, and then getting it from your stockpile to your vehicle, you're constantly working on that.
Sure. Just because most people, when they do the Darien Gap, they go by river.
Right.
But you guys were avoiding that.
Right. We would cross a river, but never travel up or down a river. All vehicle expeditions that have gone through there, even Lauren's previous ones, like I said, the one in 77, he did about 12 miles by river. So that wasn't an all-land crossing. But it was raining, and he wanted to get out, and it was in the swamp area, and he wanted to get out of the swamp. So yeah, the river, and you ask a native, how do I get from Pinogana to Boca de Cupi? They say, well, you get on the river and you go upriver. Well, no, that's not an option. We have to stay on land. Well, then they kind of scratch their heads, because that's not how they go. And they will work it out and find, we had really good guides. We really did. The guy, like I said, if it wasn't for the guides, we were screwed. Good guides. We had excellent cook. And when I say excellent cook, we're not talking gourmet cooking. We're not talking gourmet. We're talking oatmeal for breakfast, sometimes fry bread. I forget what it's called down there, but it's basically fry bread. Hot tea, sometimes plantanos. That would be it. Lunch would be beans and rice, and then dinner would be rice and beans.
Yeah. To switch it up.
Just to
lunch.
switch it
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Gotcha.
The guys liked sardines. So we had a lot of sardines, and sometimes they have, especially the men, workers, they would like canned sardines with lunch. And that was part of their work agreement, was they would get 3 meals a day.
Okay.
And I mean, there were times when rations were getting short and we were having a few issues, and gringos would cut back on rations so that because the work crew was going out there doing the work. I mean, we're not really physically slashing with a machete or chopping with an axe.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another thing Lauren did, is he was looking at this whole thing from the very beginning and from conception as a romantic high adventure. This was not to be, he really wanted to do nothing but get a vehicle through the Darien Gap, and money's not an option. You hire a cat and pull those away through and you're through.
Yeah.
But that's not what he wanted, the challenge and the adventure and the romance of doing it. So it was axes and machetes.
Wow. And
and
imagine like 2 days after then the natives axe and machete your way through. The trouble is probably going to
unless you move big trees, because if you look at the way the jungle's done, you've got a lot of very little undergrowth. You have a little bit of undergrowth, and you've got some taller trees, then you've got the huge trees, the canopy. When that canopy is removed and the sunlight gets through, then you'll have a burst of growth down on the floor of the jungle. But other than that, you don't have much. I mean, there is some. Yes, I'm not saying there isn't any, but there's we did not chop trees. We chopped maybe 8-inch in diameter tree occasionally.
Yeah.
Because axes and machetes, it's a lot easier to find a route around than take the time to chop the tree.
Sure.
Unless the route around was impossible because of camber or whatever, then the tree would go through. 90% of the time, it was all just small stuff that was being cut down with axes, with machete. There was some axe work, but on a whole, machete work.
And you guys had also probably with uh, things like possibly getting malaria or dengue fever or something.
Yeah, that's good. The more you know, the more you're going to be afraid. And I kind of look at what's out there nowadays. I mean, I was aware of a leishmaniasis. Dengue fever was really not on the radar back then that I can remember. Malaria was, yellow fever was, but both yellow fever and malaria were pretty rare in Panama, even in the Darien.
Interesting.
At that time.
Right.
Since then, it has gotten worse. And of course, dengue fever is definitely there. Leishmaniasis was probably the one that concerned me most, which is this funky little bacteria. Or I don't even know what it is that you get in your body openings if you're in water.
Water, right.
Yeah. And of course, water is the lifeline for everybody. So we always tried to camp near water. Our water sources that we were camping near may have been fairly stagnant, which is even the worst type. But when you're out there working in the jungle at 95 degrees and 95% humidity, any type of water at that point is going to just kind of skim the top off and get in and submerge and wash up and skim the top off and get out. Because to me, it was one of my priorities. I said, if we're not near water, I give up my morning cup of tea for a teacup bath. I would give up water for my tea. I mean, I'd give up my tea just so I could get something poured over me that was semi-refreshing. But there were times when we didn't camp near water. And then again, logistics, had to have a 5-gallon water jug. Guys had to hike for water, bring back because they had to have water for the cook to prepare the oatmeal and coffee and a tea for breakfast. Mm-hmm. And again, that was, it was just one of those things you're always thinking. When we could, we would buy eggs from villagers or fruit, yuca and plantanos.
Which are kind of like bananas?
Bananas.
Okay.
They're a big, heavy green banana. And most of the natives will eat them in that green stage by just peeling them and then laying them on the coals and roasting them. Or they'll cut them up and they'll boil them and they'll put them like in a soup or a stew or something. Personally, I mean, the people like them. It's a staple. I know that it's got nutrition to it, but I think you could cut up balsa wood and get the same texture. That was not my favorite. You take that same banana that's green and as hard as a rock and you let it ripen to the point where it's almost black. The best. And you cook it then, you cook them in a little bit of oil and it's just like sugar. I mean, because that's all. That black is nothing but sugar by that time. And you don't eat them like a banana. Then you still cook them and they'll fry them and make plantanos or plantain chips, put a salt on them. Then they're delicious. But this is people that they don't really let things ripen because, it's their diet. It's what they need, their nutrition. So a lot of time. Yeah. So usually if there were green plantanos on the diet, I stayed away from that. If I could secure one and hide it, pull it out 3 days later, take this one for me. That was great. But yeah. But eggs were really kind of like a big thing. I mean, it's like someone just made you a T-bone steak or something. It's just, wow. And I remember one time when we finally made the village of Boca de Cupes, that was kind of like a big deal. We made Boca de Cupe. The next day was a down day for everybody. The men had off and everything. Said, you guys get a chicken, roasted chicken, that sort of thing. So I remember the men running around the village trying to catch getting chicken to roast. And our cook had a shotgun, and he would hunt. Now his shotgun was old, ancient, corrupt. I hated touching it because it wanted to fall apart. And we carry it for him in the back of the Jeep. And I remember one time we were winching. It was just Lauren and I. Lauren's out front. We're winching up what we call Pig River because we knew there were wild pigs in the area, and you could see where they had wallowed. And we're winching, it was narrow, very narrow. We're winching up and we're kind of at an angle because it's so narrow. And I remember the throttle got stuck and the engine raced and Lauren said, it's okay. Don't worry. Cause I never know what's going on. I'm just he says, it's fine. Just keep going. So we're winching. And all of a sudden up on the bank of the river, here comes Cookie, puts barefoot, Escobena. He had made camp about a couple 100 yards ahead. There were Saina, wild pigs. And So I'm trying to winch, trying to get the shotgun out, hand it out the window to him so that he can run back out and shoot a pig, which he did do, which was very, very good.
Yeah, I suppose meat was always a treat.
Meat was a big treat. And he was, again, we're talking about people that know the air, and cooking with, he knew. We'd had, he'd cook it that night for dinner with our rice and beans. And then he spent that night building a rack over the fire and smoked the rest of the night so that we had it for a few days.
Safe.
We had no refrigeration. It wasn't before you had the cigarette lighter type refrigerators. They were around back then, but it was just something else that could break down. And anything that drew power was always of a concern because we didn't have solar power. We didn't have sun half the time to charge it. So this was before all the GPS fancy stuff that's available now.
Well, you didn't have a lot of room.
No,
Either.
and room,
I mean,
yeah,
this
no
is a
room,
fairly
yeah,
small Jeep.
and it's heavy. It's very heavy. Lauren had raised the roof 4 inches because he was 6'4". So it took a short, narrow vehicle that's top heavy to begin with, made it more top heavy. There's a rack on the roof that adds more weight up there. Don't know. I think we carried a tarp up there going through the gap because if we ever got into rain, that was our rain protection. But other than that, nothing else was carried on the top because of that added weight so high. But it was 741 days for the 125 miles through the gap. And because of that, and we had sent journals and everything to Guinness Book. At that time, Guinness Book was giving records for first. They no longer give records for first, unfortunately. They only give records that can be broken. And of course, once you're first, you're first.
Yeah.
There's no way you break that one.
No.
I mean, maybe if you went first words, I'm not sure. But because we tried, because in doing what we did, we then continued down through South America. We shipped across to Africa, and then up through the heart of Africa, through the Middle East, to end at the furthest road north in Norway, which was at that time, this was 1989, at Gambik, Norway. So we went around the world entirely on land, except for the South Atlantic. But even though that's never been done, because no one's ever done the Darien Gap but us,
Wow.
it's still not that the Guinness Book no longer recognizes. We did get it for just the Darien Gap. And this story that I tell, it's always, but wait, there's more. When we were in the Middle East in 1988, trying to drive the Discovery from Israel into Jordan, they were technically war. We couldn't do it. The borders were closed. Lebanon was our only other choice, and I think this was 5 years after the Great Barracks bombing. U.S. people were not welcome there, and when you're driving something red with California license plate, can't hide your identity. I mean, if it had been a dirty gray one with Minnesota plates, they would probably have scratched their heads. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just that it's probably not as well known. We're going to have to backtrack into Egypt, take the ferry up to Jordan, which is what we did, which is not legitimate because it's a water barrier that we could have crossed by land. We continued on. We were to enter the Soviet Union in mid-October, and this is the old Soviet Union, another eye-opening travel that just, made you realize what you got here and what they got there and big differences. And we had to prearrange everything through their official government-run tourist agency called Intourist. We had done all that in Cairo, and we said we will pick our paperwork up at the Intourist office in Bucharest, Romania, on such and such a day. Well, we were there at the Bucharest Intourist office on that day, and they never heard of us.
Oh,
Never heard of us. And the gentleman that worked there, the secretary and the man that worked there didn't really understand much English, so we weren't communicating well.
Wired had to.
It did. It did. We
At
thought,
that point.
What do we do now?
Yeah.
And he was telling us to wait. We waited out in the waiting room. Well, in through the back comes this gentleman that works there, a tiny, probably 50, 60-year-old man, gray hair, with this tall, good-looking, 6-foot, well-kept, short hair, groomed polo shirt, khaki slacks, and an athletic bag slung over his shoulder. Hi, I'm a tourist just like you are. My dad worked for DI, was naval intelligence, and I'm thinking, no, I can see the word spy tattooed across your forehead. You just got called from the embassy to come down here. This man could translate from English to Romanian or whatever language they were speaking. As fast as I was speaking English, she was spitting Romanian. And it came down to, yes, they could do the paperwork. No problem. It would take 2 weeks. Well, that's going to put us in Norway in November. And we thought, as much as we want to finish, I don't think we want to finish at that time. I said, look, what we'll do is we'll come back in the spring when temperatures are better and all that. Make at that time. Fine. Well, when we got ready to leave, our friendly tourist, just like us, says, "Pull out." And everywhere we've been with the team, no matter where it's been, I mean, we could be at a village in the Darien Gap, a town in South America, a village in Africa. People would gather. It's different, bright, it's shiny. Where are you? It has a map on it with our route. Where have you been? Where are you going? Even though there's a language barrier, you always could breach that. You could always make yourself understood. They could make themselves understood. Well, we couldn't park right where the in-tourist office was. We parked around a corner, down a block or something. So here's the three of us walking back down to where the Jeeps park. And as we turn this corner, there's the Jeep. This is during Ceausescu's domination. Horrible dictator. Turn the corner, and you would have sworn you were looking at a picture out of World War II. The men are just wearing that old, dowdy clothing, slouch hats, heavy work boots. The women are wearing the long dresses, the heavy socks, the babushkas. I mean, it was a Norman Rockwell picture circa 1940
In Romania.
in Romania. And there must have been 15 or 20. All of them. And as soon as somebody in the group looked up and saw, now whether it was Lauren and I, or Lauren and I and our friendly tourists just like us, I don't know. Every single one of them put their head down and walked in the other direction. Every single one of them turned and walked away. No interaction whatsoever. I still get chills when I remember seeing that because we're people.
No
I don't know
freedom.
whether they're afraid. Yeah, I don't know whether they're afraid of us or him or all of us, but it was just weird. We had a camp that night outside Bucharest, and we'd gone to the camp earlier in the day, found our camping site, and then went back to the in-tourist, and we went back to the campsite. And as we entered, there's a young 18, 20-year-old guy there, spoke really good English. He said, some people told me there was an American thing here that had a winch. My girlfriend's driven off the road. I need help. I said, sure, no problem. So get some for this, and we're going down through the campground, and it's all woods, pretty thick woods at that point, and it's just a narrow, almost one-lane road, paved, comes to a T intersection, and she didn't make it was a pretty sharp right. She didn't make it. She kind of went off and into the fire pit on the other side. Little car, no real damage or anything, going obviously slow enough, but it just needed to be pulled back up on the road. So we stopped, and Lauren and the kid get out, and Lauren, because he spoke good English, so was working with the kid, and they got the winch cable out. Lauren was able to hook it up to the car. Well, the girls, and they were both college students. So, from what I know of this particular area, they're coming from money. The only way they're going to get it. And they're driving English, right? They could speak English, and they're driving their own car. So there's some money in the family somewhere. And this is still one of the saddest moments of the whole trip. Because she asked me, man, I said, well, we're traveling, right? And they thought, I'm lucky. Oh my God. It still bothers me. Anybody at this event can walk up to me and say, you're lucky. But everybody here can do exactly what we did. There is no one stopping them from doing it. Here's a government that is so horrible and so horrific. These people know there's a world out there. They see it in bits and pieces. And I often wonder, because Ceausescu, I think, was out. So my God, those people got out, traveled, and saw places that they only read about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the saddest times, the whole trip. Because yeah, I'm lucky, but I want to do it. Nothing's anybody in this country doing it. But there are countries in the world today, still, I'm sure, where three countries in this world. Well, may know it's out there, but
Can't do it.
so yeah, that was a hard one. So anyway, we went back, spent the winter in England, and I went back to the States. And tried to get sponsorship because we'd gotten a few products. Okay, we needed them. Then Firestone kicked in. South Africa gave us Firestones for $50 a pop. When we got to England, England outfitted us with Firestones. And then here, several years ago, Firestone gave us a $0.01. So Firestone's been really, I mean, they're just a set of tires, which isn't much, but when you have to buy tires nowadays, it adds up. So in '89, I flew back to England. We started back up where we left off, came back across to Calais, France, and on up, and finished at Gambik, Norway. And Lauren wanted to finish American Holiday after taking an American vehicle around the world. So we actually held up a day so we could finish it on the 4th of July.
Oh, how appropriate.
And that's about the only really truly all-American holiday. Finished it on the 4th of July, 1989. But there's more.
So let's come back to that because, as we just mentioned, you can't do things really without sponsors. We need to take another break for another sponsor.
Curt Echo Mobile Brake Controller is a world-first mobile Bluetooth brake controller that can give you an entirely new towing experience. It's easily plug and play into your RV wiring harness with no tools required. It connects wirelessly and syncs with your smartphone to control and monitor all trailer brake activities. Its compact, portable design allows for easy transfer from one vehicle to another and convenient storage when it's not in use. Check it out in the complete family of Echo units to find the best fit for your towing setup.
All right, let's talk about Israel and Jordan. I've been to Israel and
One of my favorite countries.
yes, I mean, it's one of those, it's so hard to appreciate when you're
Oh,
there.
yeah. I think you could spend a year minimum, if not more,
Mhm.
just to see it. And Jordan, too. Jordan and Israel, probably too. Egypt at that time. Those three countries were really one of my favorite countries.
They're fascinating.
I think because of the history involved in them.
Yeah,
The fact that it's basically, the cradle of civilization.
it's overwhelming.
It's
You know?
there. Yeah.
I think somebody told me when we were there in Israel that, you Americans, you think something that's 200 years old is old. Not to us.
Right.
It's got to be 2,000 years
Yeah.
old, and that's old.
When we were in Egypt, we visited Luxor. I think it was Luxor. Karnak at Luxor. And you're going through and they're giving you this tour and this history. And here are these temples that were built for 4,000 years ago. They were used for 2,000 years. They haven't been used for 2,000 years. And it's like, that's amazing. When we stayed in England, Lauren stayed on a potato farm, courtesy of a Land Rover Club contact with the Jeep, the place there. Well, when I came back, they let me stay in the main house. The house is over 400 years old. The house on this church property is over 400 years old. And I'm looking, just the history that's there. Just phenomenal. It is. So anyway, life went on. We came back to the States after finishing at Gambit. Had to get money. We were not quite dead broke, but pretty darn close to being dead broke at that point. This is a carpenter and a secretary doing this. This is not, big bucks, anything else. I mean, and as I said, we got product sponsors. We did get a little financial sponsorship. We got $500 from one company for using their product. So we got financial sponsors. But as far as any major sponsorship, no. And life went on. We went back to work. We went to construction. I went back to Seattle where my mother lived. I worked up there for a while. We finally got back together, and he had gotten a job in Tucson, lived on the job site. Again, now we're working to save our money to travel. And at that point, we thought, well, we'll try to incorporate going through Israel and Jordan, and then continuing on. Geez, we want to travel the desert. Well, that was a big, grandiose plan that was never really coming into focus for us. We're 2 years in Tucson, and the job was over with, so we went camping here in the States, national parks, state parks, dispersed camping, BLM, any place to go. And just saw the country, mostly desert Southwest. Money was running short, so looking for another job. We got a great job up in Idaho, managing, at that time it was one home. The owner now has 4 homes, but at the time it was just one home, residential property, that he used both for company retreats, but also as summer homes for the kids for family vacation. It was great. It was seasonal, summer or spring, summer, fall, and then the winter we could travel. So that's what we were doing. Well, we got kind of into that routine. And again, time's going by. We're earning money, saving money, earning money, saving money. And finally around 2000, we thought, okay, things are good in the Middle East. We can drive between Israel and Jordan. The border is open. We're going to attempt this in the winter of 2000. October of 2000. And we started getting the Jeep ready early on. And we had it all mapped out, planned out how we were going to do this. And it was October 2000 that Arafat and Louis Intifada flared up. We thought, okay, maybe not the best place to go right now. So we put everything on hold. Well, then health issues started coming with Lauren. And in 2016, Lauren's nephew came over and saw me. He says, I'm going to get you guys back to Israel. He took the Jeep back to his house, and through between him and a friend of his, and the friend's father, Mr. Merck, worked on the Jeep. We said, we don't want her showroom perfect. She earned every single dent you see there. Every single one of those dents means something. So they got rid of the rust. They didn't put in got the radiator fixed. They fixed most of her leaks. Firestone gave us new tires. Omix Ada out of Atlanta gave us a new wiring harness. It's a godsend because Lauren had done all the electrical, and it was all piecemeal. So he had thin gauge to heavy gauge to thinner gauge and a lot of duct tape. Mike looked at this. He says, I cannot believe this thing did not catch fire and burn. He said, it is a nightmare. So whole new wiring harness. We now have, what do you call them? Instrument lights. We never had them before. They don't like it anymore. So it was wonderful. And we were saving money, and we knew because our biggest expense was going to be transportation. And we were planning to do this in November, December of 2018. Well, the man we've been working for, a company by the name of Owl Companies, out of California, Greg said, he goes, he only saw Lauren every 4 or 5 months. He could see Lauren's decline more than I could. I was with him all. He said, if you don't go now, Lauren's not happy to go. He said, I will pay all transport. And that was the budget. That was 99% of the budget. Right there. And so he footed the bill for transportation fee discovery from Richland, Washington to Ashdod, Israel, and back. That was land and sea. And he paid for airfare. And that was, like I said, if it hadn't been for that, I don't know. Well, I certainly wouldn't be doing this because I wouldn't have had the reserve to do this. So we completed the trip. We got to Ashdod, Jeep got to Ashdod, and we literally drove from a road we were on in Israel in 1988 to the road we were on in Jordan in 1988. Airport Street, made a U-turn, which is now a 4-lane road. It was only a 2-lane road back. Made a U-turn and came back to the border. Took us less time to do that than did get through all the border crossings. But we always called it the final mile, but it was probably, I think, 2.5 miles from one street to the other. The final mile sounded better. So it wasn't actually till May 3rd, 2018 that she had all 4 tires on the ground around the world.
Wow. Which is total miles being approximately?
Well, probably a little over 56,000.
6,000.
You know, when you add up the years, he started in 1984, 15th, 1984, Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. And technically, it wasn't finished till May 3rd, 2018. So
56,000 miles. And
which isn't really many miles. Some people put that on a year around here.
But 50,000 of them are probably hard miles.
Yeah. Well, Africa was 4,000 miles of 4-wheel drive. I don't think most of these vehicles, they don't see continuous 4-wheel drive for 4,000 miles.
No.
They may see it for short spurts, but yeah, she was in 4-wheel drive. All of Zaire, all of Central African Republic, and all of Sudan, and half of Egypt.
Yeah, think how many vehicles never leave pavement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your Jeep has seen more unpaved roads
Oh, yeah.
than it has paved
Yeah.
roads.
Yeah. Because Africa was, once you left Zambia, there may have been pavement in a few of the towns and some of the cities that we were in Kinshasa, Kisangani, Bang, Khartoum, even pavement that you can use your imagination. That they were out there.
Now you're looking for a new home for the Jeep.
I am. I would like to find a museum that would like to put her on display. She's got a temporary home coming up this October at the Midwest Dream Park Collection in Manhattan, Kansas. She has a 6-month stay there that I might extend for a few months. But I would like to find a place that would put her on display and keep her on display. I don't want her put in a storage. I don't want her hidden. Her story needs to get out there and get told.
But she's got quite a story.
She does. She has a good story. I want people to know that anybody can do this. I mean, if it's something you want to do, you can do it. Can't was never a word in my family. My sister, my dad said, well, might not want to do it, but you can do it. So can't is not going to go. And that's kind of what I grew up with. So yeah, everything's just, it may just take you more time, more effort, more money, more determination. You might have to give up something to achieve that goal. And it's all a balance of, okay, what do I have to give up? And is it really worth it? If it's worth it, give that up is no problem at all.
That's what I love about your story, because we hear from, women that say, oh, I want to be a girl camper, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to tow a trailer. I don't know how to back. And I like to say, well, I wasn't born backing a trailer.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's not in your DNA. It is not there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying some people don't get it, come to it easier than others. Every year before I start out, because this is towed in a 22-foot car hauler, I hook up and I go down. Fortunately, I live in a very small town. It is a Mormon town, so the only grocery store in town is closed on Sunday. I go down to the grocery store parking lot and I practice my backing and turning and filling and all that for, maybe an hour or two. And until I say, okay, yeah, it's back to me. Call it good. Good. Yep. Yeah, it's just, you still, sometimes I'll like parking here. I hadn't backed up for a while. I've been 2 days going straight. So I can get here and I'm thinking the one with the hand at the bottom doesn't work. I've tried that. That one confuses me. I still have.
And that's my way.
Yeah. I've tried it. And that one spooks me out. I thought, no, okay. I want the trailer to go left, then turn right. I want the trailer to go right. I turn left. So yeah. Okay. And I sometimes I'll have to turn around. I'll look at the trailer, look at it in the mirror, and I have to use the mirror because you can't see anything looking at the back. All you see is this big thing back there. So yeah, you want to use your mirrors. And I've been a mirror even just backing up a vehicle. I don't behind directly out. It's the mirrors that really tell me. And so I'm fairly good with that. So yeah, it's just one of those things that just takes practice to do. Don't let it scare you. My God.
This will be another podcast. Patty and Lesa describe 2 ways to learn to back.
Backing trailers. Yeah. And my husband was a good backer because he worked construction. So he was really, really good. And he was good at giving directions as well. And we were both, I always laughed at pulling into some campsites and if we were backing, listening to other people backing. This is before we had the trailer. We were camping just out of our truck or something. And you got the 2 people out there screaming and hollering and just, we never talked to each other. It was all gestures that we would use. We never would do talking because, you're that far away. You got an engine running. You can't get somewhere you can see him in the mirror.
Well, I don't know about you, Lori, but my husband forgets to put the windows down.
Oh, yeah.
And then he'll be talking to me.
Well, and he was hard to hear. My husband was hard to hear. Yeah. So, yeah, it was like, now I know people think you used your cell phones and you can talk to each other that way. Which I think, that's good. Lisa gets rid of the screaming at the side.
Keep the windows up.
Yeah, keep the windows up and use your cell phone and you can communicate to the driver. But, I don't want to, I don't know that I would let anything stop. I am that, I was kind of that person always. And Lauren helped reinforce that in me. And when he passed in 2022, I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? Because I've been with him for, gosh, we've been together since 86 days. We've been married since 93. So, it was one of those, and previously I was married, so I was always with somebody. So how am I going to be me? What am I going to do with my life? I'm not getting younger, and things are getting harder for me. I thought, well, I got to get her story out there. Well, to get her story out there, I got to get her out there. Well, how do I get her out there? I got to tow her. I'm not driving her. Last year started doing this and going to shows and taking her around. Didn't do about 5 shows last year. This year it's been much more extensive. I've already done 3. I've already done 4. This is my 5th one. And from here I've got, I think, 5 more.
And people can find out where you're going to be next. Where?
They can look at my website, which is www.outbackofbeyond.com. And there is a page on there that has all where I'm going to be all throughout the rest of the year, all the way through October. Yeah, all the way through October for sure. And I'm on Instagram at Sandship Discovery.
Awesome. I highly encourage people, find Patty, find her at one of the shows that are coming up, sit down and talk to her. She is fascinating. Patty, I want to have you on again because I know some stuff that you were telling me yesterday. I'm not going to fill you in that might be in the works, and it will make for another episode that'll be really fun to talk about. But Patty, thank you so much for being on today.
This. I'm glad you reached out. I really appreciate it.
It's been awesome. Thank you.
So that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode with my interview of Patty Upton as much as I did. I think she's an absolutely fascinating person, and I cannot imagine taking any vehicle through the Darien Gap, through the swamps and the jungle and all of that. And Patty isn't done. She's got some more things on her plate that I hope to bring to you in future podcast episodes, so stay tuned. And if you like today's episode, be sure to like it and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And be sure to check out on all the Girl Camper events that we have posted. We just listed Camperee for 2025. It's going to be in fabulous Granby, Colorado. Our best one yet, I think. And be sure to check out the Girl Camper magazine, our newsletter, and all the things that we have to offer. Until next time, I'm Lesa McDermott, and I'll see you around the campfire.